What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 68A of my reviewing and ranking Frank Zappa's guitar solos within the context of an album. Today's album being Halloween 81, specifically the early show on Halloween. This box set had three separate shows in it. Halloween 81, the 8 p.m. show, Halloween 82, the midnight show, and then the November 1st show. So I'm going to do these separately because I do have this opinion that the tour, this is a literally the turning point of the tour. Back in late 90s, several hardcore Zappa fans and I tried to document every single Zappa bootleg, every single Zappa concert tape, everything that was out there. We did it tour by tour. It was me, Charles Urich, Sean Gaffney, Pat Busby, John Noren, Bill Lance. I think it was just us. I think one other guy contributed every so often. But we literally went through every tour and just reviewed every available tape. A lot of them didn't sound too good. But I specifically remember when we did 81 that this really seemed to be a turning point. And that prior to Halloween 81, you had a really good tour that had shows that were at times great. And then after Halloween 81, you had great shows that were at times perfect. And I haven't listened to this in probably a while just because there's been other Frank Zappa stuff. So it's maybe not a year, but maybe 6 months or so. So I'm interested to see if solo-wise, I do think that this case is bared out solo-wise. We go from good at times great to ridiculous over the course of these three shows, and that this is literally like a pivot point. That being said, there were 9 solos in the first show. Each of them is incredible. So we're already starting off on a really high bar. Possibly the most surprising thing about the whole thing is how ridiculous Wackerman and Tunis already are, like, just locked into Frank. This is their first tour. They're ridiculous. Tunis is fantastic, but I think the one thing that stands out more than anything in all these is Chad. Kind of maybe the drummer he sounds the most like is Vinny. He is a very busy drummer, but then there's something about sort of his locked in tightness that reminds me of Humphrey. He definitely doesn't have, say, the power of like a Thompson or of a Bozio. Definitely more in a Vinny meets Humphrey sort of realm, but at the same time, completely his own beast. So anyways, I'm going to talk about the 9 solos from least favorite to favorite. I'll put the list on the screen. I will not be ranking this release now amongst the others. I will wait till part 3 to do that, in which I will rank the shows, these 3 shows, and then rank the solos. So anyways, enough talking. Number 9 is What's New in Baltimore. A little more rushed than the sort of official version, a little more rushed than I think what the song would be within 2 or 3 weeks when it would somehow even become more epic. Still has a lot of screaming notes, still very sustained, still has that very almost patriotic, uplifting feel to it. A lot of the similar themes and melodies that just become part of What's New in Baltimore. But Chad, like immediately from even the worst solo, Wackerman is just pushing the boundaries and doing things and making his presence known in the best way possible. Number 2 is Drowning Witch 2, the second solo, the dun 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 dun, the one that usually gets sourced for like guitar solos when Frank does like guitar or Jazz from Hell or something like that. Really forceful entry into the solo, as if Frank's like establishing dominance early, and then once he establishes dominance, then he can kind of like, just kind of chill, kind of sit back and then like do stuff because you're going to listen to him because he's already, made sure who's boss. Maybe just a little bit too short. I think it needed more time to develop. Some really good ideas, some really good playing. But I don't know. Another minute of this maybe would have knocked it up a couple slots. But some good stuff. But not as good as Johnny Which One. Number 7 is Dumb All Over. The rhythm section in this is ridiculous. Just fantastic. The beginning of the solo is kind of, almost the entire solo is almost like antagonistic to what the rhythm section is doing, kind of off kilter, has this forced funkiness to it where it doesn't seem to be working, but it seems intentional. It seems like, it matches the lyrics that this guitar solo enters, and it just feels a little out of place. But then Chad is there to like, anytime you're like, oh man, things aren't working, Chad will come in with some idea that's like, oh yeah, how are they going to work? Look what Chad's doing. And then Frank will follow him to some weird place. But yeah, really good. Awesome to hear. I think this song needs a solo at the end of it. There's a lot of angry energy and dumb all over it that I think Frank can then, exercise out through a really good guitar solo. That would be number 7. Number 6 is Drowning Witch 1. This is another one where it seems like Frank is like fighting against the rhythm section, like he's purposely antagonistic to it, like he's like almost like a salmon swimming upstream for a while, and he's fighting against everything that's going with him. And it takes him a while not to figure out the rhythm, but I guess to find where he's going to work within this song. And once he does, the song just kind of takes off to another level. And it's not as if he's turned around and going downstream, but now he's able to make those jumps a lot smoother as he goes upstream, and it's not quite the struggle. But it's interesting, and the contrast I think is purposeful, and Frank knows what he's doing, and Wackerman is challenging Frank at all points in time, and Tunis. So it's a really solid solo. I think within 2 weeks these Drowning Witch solos would easily top any list. Here we're still working towards that, but I think this one is a little more eclectic than the second one. Has just a lot more ideas you want to kind of go back and re-listen to and figure out what was Frank doing there, how does this work. It's Frank's getting to that point in 81 where these solos are just becoming a little more challenging and just a little more, like Frank's understanding like the Tunis Wackerman combo that he has, and he's really starting to stretch out and take chances. And this first Drowning Witch solo is a perfect example of that. And then we get the exact opposite of that at number 5, which is Alien Orifice, which is just 1 minute and 40 seconds of absolute guitar perfection. I don't care what tour this is from. I don't care whether it's early Alien Orifice or late in its touring career Alien Orifice. These solos are always fantastic. That sort of vamp that it plays over, that dun 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 dun, always reminds me of like a video game. And like Frank is like on some kind of very fast moving machine trying to like navigate around this dun 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 dun, things that are like stomping or rising up from the ground or something like that. And he's trying to navigate sort of the chaos of the percussion section of the vamp for the entire 1 minute and 40 seconds. And he keeps having to like switch gears and change tactics, and like every 25 seconds or so it seems like we're in a whole different part of the game. The sound is just huge. The rhythm section just kind of sounds monstrous here. It is fantastic. And even the beginning of this, I think as this song would hit into like following other tours, the intro becomes a little more confident. Frank does kind of enter a little maybe cautiously in this one, like, what am I going to do? But then he immediately sort of like gets his groove and just attacks it. And I don't know if I've ever like heard a bad Alien Orifice. Like, this is just the perfect vamp, and Frank has always known how to just ride this and exploit this. And it's an amazing solo. Number 4 is Chunga's Revenge, which opens up the show. Really, really aggressive. The rhythm section sounds fantastic. It's your very Chunga's Revenge-y, in which Frank's just kind of all over the map with really hardcore, intense rock, hard rock, slightly metallic ideas, and just, attacking full on. If I have a complaint about this, it's too short. It's just too short. And I think, I'm not mistaken, as we go from this show to Halloween to the first, each of these opening solos gets a little bit longer. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what makes a solo better, is it being longer. But I think as it gets longer, Frank's developing more ideas and it becomes more engaging, and it's like maybe a little more of a journey. And so, I don't know. I'm just a point to my case that these shows mark a progression in the tour. But it's a great opener. No complaints. When it ends, I'm like, no, keep going. It's really good. And these top 3, I kind of gave the same ranking. Ultimately had to go with number 1 because of the uniqueness of it. Maybe not because of the solo, but these top 3 are... number 3 is City of Tiny Lights. Starts off really low and dirty to start. We got some great Santana feedback throughout the song. We're riding that Carlos Santana groove in a pretty hard, unique way. Really good. Great bursts throughout by Frank, long held feedback notes, you know, pay, paying some homage to Carlos Santana as we rip off his secret chord progression. Yeah, it's the brilliance that is City of Tiny Lights in 81 and 82 with the attack version, not the hey, let's bring it down version, but like, let's go hard at it version. Let's make this guitar make noise version. Yeah, I mean, just everything about this, the rhythm section, the guitar solo, it's perfect. Number two, the show ending whipping post. Frank's leaving it all on the floor. He knows last solo of the night. He's got a couple hours backstage to rest or relax before the midnight show. No change of amp. We don't get a dun-dun-dun-dun. We don't get anything. We just get straight out of the vocal section. We're just riding that energy. And just Frank is just soloing it. It's just kind of like one of those where he goes and then he renews his attack and he goes again and he renews attack. And then as we get towards the end, it just gets weirder and crazier and more ferocious. And Frank's making crazy noises and the rhythm section is responding in kind. And I'm somebody who usually doesn't like whipping posts, not my favorite covers of his. Huge fan of the original, but I just, when Frank changes up that middle section to like be clever in the guitar solo, I think it loses the momentum of the song. The momentum of the song is maintained in this one, and I think that makes the solo work better. And Frank is delivering. It's a great show-ending solo. Absolutely fantastic. And number one, Yo Mama. Just fantastic. And I think one of maybe the greatest, one of the most interesting sections of music of this entire release is in this. It's your typical three-tiered Yo Mama solo. You get the beginning part when it's mainly Frank and Spacey and just random stuff is happening in the background, but Frank's kind of alone out on an island doing his thing, with minimal support from a distance. And then we get that first switch into that nice middle groove. And this middle groove, this second section, there is so much going on just right below Frank's solo. A lot of really percussive elements like keyboard and some, I think, actual percussion by Ed Mann, and just this bubbling, really, really proggy, very busy landscape. Completely different from sort of the swaths and the blankets of noise that like 78 would bring. But like just this very percolating, busy, proggy vibe in that second section that is absolutely ridiculous. And like, I don't know if the solo itself that's happening above that is better than the Whipping Post solo or is maybe even better than the City of Tiny Lights, but the entire package, I think it's one of the greatest, I don't know, minute and a half pieces of music that just from this entire box set, maybe. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. And that, of course, then goes into the big climax where things get bigger and louder and stronger and we finish. The ending sort of dun, 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 kind of tiptoe into that. It's not the perfect transition, but this is kind of like, to me, Yo Mama solos are reminiscent of like Frank's Grateful Dead Morning Dew solos. Like if you're a Dead fan, you all know about Barton Hall Morning Dew, right? Like every time you hear a Morning Dew or see a Morning Dew, you're like, how close are we coming to that performance? Well, Yo Mama is one of those. I think everybody has that Yo Mama performance that is like the perfect one, possibly the Shake Your Booty one. And anytime a Yo Mama gets dropped, you're like, okay, how close does this version get to that? Parts 1 and 2, I don't know, they might transcend that. It's just so perfect. The third part, that climax and slide in, is maybe not as perfect as other versions, but it's pretty satisfying. And there's really, really nothing to complain about. You can't always be perfect, but you want him to try, and Frank's trying. It's just so good. There's so much it's just such a beautiful, beautiful. The drop in it into part 2 is just so awesome. It comes in a little harder, I think, than the normal one. Yeah, but that second part of this, just absolutely fantastic. 9 solos. That's what they look like. I think if I had to give this an overall number, like this is up in like a 9.798 is what I'm going to give this overall show. Some really good stuff. I don't think I give anything a perfect 10. Those last three are pretty high up there, but it's a really, really, really great guitar outing. And my argument, having not listened to Halloween 81 in probably about 6 months, the actual second show, I mean, is that it's going to get better in the second show. And then my further argument is it's going to get better in the third show. So I'm interested to see. I've yet to re-listen to those. I've yet to make that video, obviously. So we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. But that'll drop soon. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me hear your thoughts on these solos. Let me know if you check them out. You should go check them out. They are fantastic. And the number 4 on the list, Junker's Revenge, it's the first thing you're going to hear, you know, and it's going to engage you and it's going to pull you in because it's fantastic. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Do all those things you should do. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and go listen to Frank Zappa Halloween 81. It's a really good release, and the sound is pretty amazing. And Chad Wackerman, people. Chad Wackerman. Peace. Talk to you later.